The Silent Descent. The alien princess lay in the shadows of the dark forest, her body battered and broken, abandoned in a place she did not know. Her injuries were severe, her energy fading with each breath. The once proud princess of her people now lay helpless, a far cry from the ruler she once was. She had always been a symbol of strength, of unshakable power, yet now, she could barely lift her head. Her mind raced as she tried to piece together the events that led to her fall. It had all happened so quickly. The attack had come without warning, an ambush by a rival faction that had destroyed her fleet. They had overpowered her guards, and before she could react, she had been struck down. When she awoke, the battlefield was silent, her soldiers scattered, and her people nowhere to be found. Her people had deserted her, abandoned the princess who had ruled them with compassion and strength, left to die alone. In the cold, dark forest, she could hear nothing but the rustling of leaves. It felt like the world had turned its back on her, like she no longer mattered. Every breath she took was a struggle, but she refused to give in. Her pride, her spirit, she would not let them break her. Time passed slowly, each minute stretching into eternity. The pain in her body was overwhelming, and yet, her thoughts were even louder. Why had her people betrayed her? Why had they left her to die? Was it because she had always been an outsider, an alien in their eyes? Even though she had fought for them, bled for them, why had they turned away from her so easily? The forest around her was silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves or the call of a distant creature. The stars above offered no comfort, only an endless stretch of cold, indifferent sky. She had seen many battles, many wars, but this was different. This was the final, silent defeat. And yet, as the princess lay there, broken and alone, something stirred in the distance. At first, it was just a faint sound, like a whisper carried on the wind, but then, it grew louder, closer, footsteps, steady, deliberate, not the quick, sharp movements of an enemy soldier, but something slower, something human. Could it be? She forced herself to focus, squinting her eyes in the dim light. Could it be that someone was coming for her? After everything, after the betrayal and the bloodshed, was there still hope? Could a human really be here? Was this some strange twist of fate? The princess tried to move, tried to push herself up, but her body refused to obey. Her limbs were weak, her vision blurry. She couldn't make a sound, couldn't lift her arm to signal for help. She could only wait, helpless, hoping that the footsteps meant what she thought they did. The sound of the footsteps grew louder, now unmistakable. Someone was coming. They were getting closer, a human, a real human. She could hardly believe it. After all the stories she had heard about the human race, about their power and their ruthlessness, could this human really be the one to save her, or was this just another cruel twist of fate? For a brief moment, she thought she might be dreaming. The pain was so intense that it felt like she was floating in a haze, but the footsteps were real, and so was the voice that called out to her. "Are you all right?" a voice asked, soft yet filled with a determination that caught her off guard. The princess could barely open her eyes, but she managed to lift her head slightly. Through the blur of her vision, she saw a figure step forward, a human, clothed in rugged, practical gear. His face was obscured by a hood, but his posture was calm, confident. He was not afraid of her, not intimidated by the alien princess in front of him. He stepped closer, crouching down beside her. "You're injured," he said, his voice full of concern. For a moment, the princess couldn't speak. She was too stunned, too weak, to do anything but watch as this human reached out a hand, offering her a chance, a lifeline. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would you help me?" The human looked at her for a long moment, and in his eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. Compassion. "I don't know," he admitted, "but you're not alone, not anymore." It was a simple answer, but it was enough to ignite something in the princess's heart, a spark of hope, fragile but real. It had been so long since anyone had cared for her, since anyone had chosen to fight for her. As the human reached down to help her, the princess felt something shift inside her, not just pain, not just despair, but the beginning of something new, something she hadn't thought possible: trust. The unexpected ally. The princess was still in disbelief, her mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. A human, just an ordinary human, was helping her. He wasn't a soldier, not a warrior, yet here he was, kneeling beside her, offering her a hand when no one else had dared. "Why did you come?" the princess asked again, this time with more strength in her voice. She had to understand, she needed to know what had brought this human to her side. The man hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. "I saw what happened," he said. "I saw the destruction, the fighting, and I couldn't just walk away. There's more to life than survival, there's honor in helping others, even if you're an alien princess." His words were simple, but there was something in the way he said them, an unshakable conviction that struck her deeply. Honor, compassion, sacrifice, these were things the princess had thought were lost in the galaxy, yet, here was a human showing her something she had long given up on. "You're different," she whispered, more to herself than to him. She had seen so much of the universe's cruelty, so much betrayal, yet this human, this stranger, showed no fear of her alien nature, no hesitation to help her when others had turned away. The human's eyes softened, and he extended his hand once more. "Let's get you out of here, you're not safe yet, and you need medical help." The princess tried to stand, but her body refused to obey, her legs wobbled, and she nearly collapsed back to the ground. "No," she whispered in frustration, "I can't move, I'm too weak." Without a word, the human shifted his position, gently lifting her into his arms. His strength was surprising, and she felt the warmth of his body as he carried her. For a moment, the princess closed her eyes, letting the simple act of being cared for wash over her. She wasn't alone anymore, not abandoned, not rejected. As they made their way through the forest, the princess couldn't help but wonder how far he would go to help her. This human didn't know her, didn't owe her anything, yet, he was risking everything for a stranger, for someone from a race that had never treated humanity kindly. They walked in silence for a while, with only the sounds of their footsteps and the distant calls of creatures in the woods filling the air. The princess tried to push away the confusion in her mind, but there was one question she couldn't shake. "Why do you trust me?" she asked, her voice low. "After everything, why would you help me?" The human didn't answer right away, but after a few moments, he spoke softly. "Because you're a person, not just a princess, you're someone who needs help, and I can give that help. You don't need to be alone in this." His words were simple, yet they carried an unexpected weight. The princess had never known anyone to speak to her like this. She had always been seen as an object, a symbol of power, never as a person in need. It was a strange feeling, but one she couldn't deny. They finally reached a clearing, where a small, makeshift shelter had been set up. The human carefully laid her down on a bedroll, and she could see a small fire burning nearby. The warmth of the flames felt like a distant memory to her, but it was a welcome comfort. As he gathered supplies to tend to her wounds, the princess watched him, her mind racing with questions, but one thing stood out above all else. This human had chosen to stand by her when no one else would. He had chosen to help, even knowing nothing about her past, her people, her world. In that moment, the princess realized something important, something she hadn't allowed herself to believe in a long time. Perhaps humanity wasn't the enemy, perhaps they had more to offer than the cold, unfeeling galaxy she had known. She looked up at the human as he carefully cleaned her wounds. "What's your name?" she asked softly. "John," he replied, smiling gently. "John Kessler, and you are?" The princess hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should reveal her true identity, but something in John's eyes told her it would not matter. He wasn't here for her title, for her crown, he was here because she was in need. "I am Kalara," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "Princess of the Xylan Empire." John nodded. "Nice to meet you, Kalara." In that moment, the princess realized that this human had already done more for her than anyone else in her life. He hadn't asked for anything in return, he hadn't seen her as an alien princess, just as a person who needed help. And in that simple act of kindness, something began to change inside her. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was hope for her people, for humanity. She had to believe that, for if John could choose to help her, then maybe there was a chance that others could too. The rising hope. As the days passed, the princess's condition slowly improved. John stayed by her side, never once leaving her alone. Each day, he tended to her wounds, brought her food, and made sure she had enough water. He didn't talk much, but his actions spoke louder than words ever could. He was her protector now, her only ally in a world that had abandoned her. Kalara could hardly believe it. Her people had turned their backs on her, her kingdom was in ruins, and yet, Here was a human, a stranger, giving her a reason to believe again. She watched him as he worked, his steady hands caring for her. His presence was calm, reassuring, as if he had no fear of what might come next. For the first time since the attack, Clara felt a glimmer of hope. It was faint, but it was there, a hope that perhaps she could still do something, that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy wasn't as cruel as it seemed. John's kindness was a seed, planted deep within her heart, slowly starting to grow. "Why are you really helping me?" Clara asked one evening, as they sat by the fire. The night had fallen, and the stars above seemed so distant, but the warmth of the fire brought comfort to her aching body. John was sharpening his knife, preparing it for the next task at hand, but he stopped when she spoke. He looked at her, as if he were thinking about her question carefully. "I told you already," John said. "I couldn't just walk away. You're not the enemy, you're not just a princess, you're a person, and that's enough for me. I've seen enough of the galaxy's cruelty. I wanted to do something different." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. His words were simple, but they resonated with her in a way she hadn't expected. She had never thought of herself as just a person. Her whole life had been about being a symbol of power, of leadership, but here, with John, she could be something more. She could just be herself. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but sincere. She had said those words so many times, but never had they felt so real. John gave a small nod, his eyes kind but serious. "Don't mention it," he replied. "It's the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do." The princess looked up at the stars again, wondering if her people had seen the destruction, if they knew what had become of her, if they had even cared, but she quickly pushed the thoughts away. There was no point in wondering about what had already happened. What mattered now was what came next. For the first time in a long while, Clara didn't feel entirely alone. John had made her feel seen, not as a princess, not as an alien, but as a person who mattered, and that was something she hadn't felt in so long. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: she had to do something. She had to find a way to get back on her feet. The next morning, as John was preparing for the day, Clara sat up on the bedroll. She felt stronger than before, her body still sore, but the pain was manageable now. It was time to move, to make a plan. She couldn't stay hidden in the forest forever. "I think I'm ready to start moving," she said to John, who paused and turned to look at her. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I thought you might say that," he said, a small grin appearing on his face. "But we need to be careful. You're not fully healed yet, and there's no telling what kind of dangers are out there." Clara's eyes hardened with determination. "I've been through worse," she said. "I won't let this stop me. I will find my way back, and I will make sure my people know the truth." John gave a respectful nod. "I believe you," he said, "but you're not doing this alone. We're in this together now." Clara couldn't help but feel a swell of gratitude for him. Here she was, a princess abandoned by her empire, and yet this human, a stranger, had shown more loyalty than anyone from her own world. It was a strange feeling, but it was also comforting. As they began to pack up their small camp, Clara's mind raced with possibilities. What would she do once she returned to her people? How would they react when they saw her again? She had once been a powerful figure, but after everything that had happened, would they even accept her back? Would they trust her? And yet, deep down, Clara knew she had to try. She couldn't let this moment, this second chance, slip away. She had been given an opportunity to change the course of her life, and she wasn't about to waste it. John looked at her, his eyes filled with understanding. "I know it's not going to be easy," he said, "but I'll be with you every step of the way." Clara smiled, a true smile, the first one she had given in a long time. "Thank you," she said, "with you by my side, maybe we can make a difference." The road to redemption. The days ahead were filled with long hours of walking, each step taking Clara farther from the forest where she had been left to die, and closer to an uncertain future. She was still weak, her body sore from the battle, but with John's help, she grew stronger each day. His constant presence was a steady reminder that there were still good people in the universe, even when it seemed like everything had fallen apart. John kept a careful watch as they traveled, always scanning the area, making sure they weren't being followed. Clara knew the galaxy was full of enemies, and it was only a matter of time before someone would come looking for her, but for now, it was just the two of them, and she was grateful for it. Every day, they spoke little but shared everything. Kalara found herself learning about John in ways she hadn't expected. He wasn't just a soldier or a wanderer, he was a man who had lost everything, a man who understood what it meant to fight against the odds. Even though they came from different worlds, different species, their pain was the same, and that made their bond stronger. The more they traveled together, the more Kalara realized how much she had underestimated humanity. She had always thought of them as inferior, weaker, but John proved her wrong. He had saved her, and he didn't need anything in return. He asked for no praise, no reward. He simply wanted to help. It was a lesson she hadn't expected to learn, but one she would carry with her for the rest of her life. One evening, as they camped by a river, Kalara asked him a question that had been on her mind for days. "John, do you ever wonder why we fight so much, why there's always war, always conflict, why can't there be peace?" John looked at her thoughtfully, his fingers stilling as he stoked the fire. "It's hard to answer that," he said. "Some say it's in our nature to fight, that it's the only way we know how to survive, but I think peace is possible, if we all choose it, if we all choose to fight for something greater than ourselves." Kalara looked at him, wondering if he was right. Could peace really be achieved? Could the galaxy ever truly come together? But what if they don't want peace, she asked. What if they want to keep fighting, to keep tearing everything apart? John's gaze softened. "Then we keep fighting for peace," he said. "We don't give up, we show them what it means to fight for something good, something worth protecting. That's how we win." His words stirred something deep inside Kalara. She had been so focused on survival, on revenge, on reclaiming her throne, that she had never stopped to think about what she was really fighting for. But now, as she looked at John, she realized something important. There was more to life than power and victory. There was something greater than all of it, something worth fighting for. The next day, they reached the outskirts of a small settlement. Kalara could see the lights from a distance, a sign of life in a galaxy that often felt empty, but she also knew that this would be the hardest part of their journey. She would have to face her past, her people, the ones who had left her to die. As they approached the settlement, Kalara hesitated, fear rising in her chest. "What if they don't want me back?" she asked quietly. "What if they see me as a failure, as someone who has lost everything?" John placed a hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture, but one that made her feel grounded. "You're not a failure," he said. "You've made it this far, that's more than most can say, and no matter what happens next, you've already won in my eyes." Kalara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. She wasn't sure if her people would accept her, or if she could even forgive them for what they had done, but she knew that she couldn't let fear stop her. She had to face them, to prove that she wasn't the person they had cast aside. She had to show them that she was more than just a princess, she was a survivor, a warrior. John smiled, his eyes full of confidence. "Let's go show them who you really are." As they entered the settlement, Kalara's heart raced, her thoughts spun with doubts and fears, but John's presence gave her strength. He had already proven what it meant to fight for someone else, and now it was her turn. She would fight for herself, for the chance at redemption, for the chance to rebuild her life. The people of the settlement looked at her with a mix of curiosity and fear. Some recognized her, others did not, but there was no denying the aura of royalty that still surrounded her. Kalara stood tall, her head held high. "I am Kalara," she said, her voice steady and strong, "Princess of the Xylan Empire, and I have returned." The rebirth of a princess. The air in the settlement felt heavy, thick with the weight of Kalara's past. She stood before the people who had once called her their leader, her heart pounding in her chest. She had expected to feel anger, fear, resentment, but instead, all she felt was a strange sense of calm, as though she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The crowd murmured among themselves, eyes wide with disbelief and uncertainty. Many recognized her, the fallen princess of the Xylan Empire, but now, she was no longer the proud ruler they had once known. She was different, broken yet whole, a survivor of the galaxy's cruelest trials. John stood by her side, unwavering. His presence was a quiet reassurance that, no matter what happened, she was not alone. The people of the settlement watched them both, but it was clear that they were more interested in the human who had accompanied her than in the princess herself. The stories of humans had spread across the galaxy, stories of their strength, their unpredictability, their fierce will to survive. But Kalara knew that it was not just John's strength that had brought them here. It was his belief in her. "I have come back," Kalara said, her voice firm yet gentle. not to reclaim my throne, not to demand your loyalty, but to offer you something better, a chance for peace, a chance for a new beginning. There was silence in the air, as though the entire world was holding its breath. The people shifted uneasily, glancing at one another, unsure of how to respond, but Kalara stood her ground, her eyes scanning the crowd. I was abandoned, betrayed by my own people, she continued, but I did not give up. I am here because I believe in something better. I believe that we can rebuild, that we can find a way to live without fear, without war. Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, Kalara saw a flicker of understanding in the eyes of the crowd. Some looked skeptical, others uncertain, but there was something there, something that hadn't been present before, a glimmer of hope. John stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. She's telling the truth. All this fighting, all this chaos, it's not the way we have to live. If we all work together, if we all choose to fight for peace, there's nothing we can't achieve. The crowd murmured again, and Kalara could feel the tension in the air. She knew it wouldn't be easy, that the galaxy was not going to change overnight, but she also knew that this was the moment, the turning point where everything could change. I know that I've lost a lot, Kalara said. I know that my people are afraid, that they've turned their backs on me, but I am not here to force you to follow me. I am here to ask for a chance to make things right. There was a long pause, and Kalara could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on her, but then, one of the elders stepped forward, an older woman whose face was marked with the scars of time. You were once our princess, she said, her voice steady, and we watched you fall. We saw your strength, your power, but we also saw your pride, your willingness to fight even when it wasn't needed. You brought war when we needed peace. Kalara bowed her head, not in shame, but in understanding. I was wrong, she admitted. I was blind to the needs of my people. I thought that strength alone would save us, but strength without wisdom, without compassion, it only destroys. The elder looked at her for a long moment, as though weighing her words. Then, she nodded. You have changed, Kalara, and perhaps, we have too. The crowd grew still, and Kalara could feel the shift in the air. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was a sign, a first step towards something new, something better. As the night fell, the people gathered around the fire, and Kalara joined them, her heart lighter than it had been in years. John stayed close, his presence a quiet reminder that she wasn't alone, that the road ahead, though uncertain, was worth traveling. The princess who had once ruled with pride and power had fallen, but now, a new Kalara stood before them, a Kalara who had learned the true meaning of strength, not the strength to command, but the strength to forgive, to change, and to fight for something greater than herself. The future was still uncertain, the galaxy still full of conflict, but for the first time in a long while, Kalara felt ready to face it, ready to rebuild, not as a princess, but as a person, not as a ruler, but as a leader of peace. And with John by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. Together, they could bring about a new era, one where compassion and unity triumphed over war and hatred. It would not be easy, but it was worth fighting for.